What's up, everyone? Happy Wednesday and welcome to the game on PackSite Live, the show where we talk about all the cybersecurity shenanigans you need to be aware of. And we do have some shenanigans today, but we'll get into that in a second. Let's do some housekeeping. If you're going to interact with us, please do so on YouTube, and that should be PackSite's YouTube. So youtube.com/PackSiteCloud. Our producers can see your comments, bring them up on the screen, and we can have a two-way conversation. That's much more fun. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. Don't forget to sign up for PackSite Beyond to make sure that checks of mine stays fat. And today we're going to be talking about the Hackening Project, what it is, how it's going. And we have a long list of or guests rather, including Matt's dogs and then Jason Slagle and Tom Lawrence. So let's not waste any time and get right in.
Man, Dom, I'm coming to you from Tom Lawrence's basement, so things are good. Good equipment, good cameras. I got cameras
Did you
everywhere.
bring your lockpick set for when you're stuck later? Or?
We don't talk about that, Dom. We don't talk about that. No, man, I'm excited about this show. I'm also excited about talking about failure today a little bit. So it's going to be a really good conversation about the Hackening Project. But I also have my dog here somewhere, and you kind of brought it up. Damers, hey, you want to come say hey to everybody? Come here. Come here. She says, I'm tired. This is Dame, everybody. So we got a video of Dame. Dom, you want to kick over to that?
Cars. Yeah. What's this video
She
about?
does. Yeah, she does like cars. So we'll kick over to that real quick. No, hey, Goobers, guys. Hey, come over here. Come on, Goobers. Oh my God.
What did you do?
That was quite possibly the funniest thing I've seen all week. Oh no, all three of them piled in here like this was the trouble. Wait, what? I swear to God, it's gonna be on that camera. It's so good. So Don, this is how I know the world's broken. Is that video, guess how many views it's at right now, Dom?
3 million.
Negative, Ghost Rider. It's at least 17 million on one of the sites that reposted it. So it is telling me that I will never make that number from anything I do in cybersecurity. And all the world wants is dog videos, Dom.
Just need to have the dogs on the cybersecurity shows. I think we need to mesh.
Maybe that would help.
Concepts.
I mean, maybe are you like, you're kind of jumping the shark here because you're actually speaking about it as we're doing it, Dom. So if this is the end, it was great knowing you. But dog goes on the show. We've got an awesome clip from Robin Harris here in a minute, but after that, I'm sitting here with Tom Lawrence and Jason Slagle, and we're going to jump in, and Dom, we're going to talk about the things we've seen, what we're seeing as patterns, what we're struggling with, what we've actually done, and we'll take the conversation wherever it goes and butt in and ask questions, and we'll respond. Dom, does that work for you?
Let's do it.
All right, let's hear from Robin Harris. Thank you.
Are you ready?
Well, we're coming into Q4, and we're starting out with October, which is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And this is a really, really good opportunity for us to remind our people, our staff, even our family, about some of the basics we need to just keep top of mind as we go through the month and as we start to get into the holiday season. And one of the interesting things we're doing, we're going to our ISO 2022, we're redoing our policies. We decided that policies are such an exciting topic. We needed to add a little spice to it. So we're gamifying our rollout. We're doing an awareness campaign. It should be a lot of fun. And we're going to incentivize staff to really go all in and play full out while they're learning about cybersecurity, our new policies, the new ISO standards, and it really positions the policies in a better light because I don't know if you've ever read a typical security policy. It's not something people are going to be really excited about diving into, but we really need people to do that. There are some basic things like acceptable use, data classification, remote working. There are things we need people to be conscious of and aware of and comply with. And it's hard to get people to comply with things they've never even looked at or internalized. So I'm going to encourage you to think about how you can make the month a campaign to really level up your team's cyber awareness posture. Be creative, be innovative, and think about incentivizing, do some gift cards, do some swag, do, the water bottles and all the cool things people like to have. And then going forward, the way things are going now, we're going to have to stop just thinking about Cybersecurity Month. We're going to have to really start thinking about operationally embedding awareness campaigns throughout the year, maybe on a quarterly cycle, just some little thing. Did you know? Do you remember how? Here's how you report an incident as we come into the holiday season. Here's the type of scams you need to be aware of. And it just needs to become operationalized because, to be honest, 1 month out the year is not enough. So why don't you join us? And let's make Cybersecurity Month an exciting month to reboot those expectations about cybersecurity awareness.
Time to level up. Level up.
There's Dom. No, it's this way.
Policies.
There's Dom. Okay.
Close.
Got it.
It's almost
All
on
right.
the first try.
Well, we are back. We had a pop-up from Wayne Selk, if you'll bring that up real quick, because that's what we're going to be doing today, is doing this. So I'm glad he's excited about it. But what I'd love to do is let's talk about Slagle. I'll ask you, what is this project, right? Wayne Selk's looking forward to hearing about this and hearing this update on this project. What is it? What are we doing? And then maybe we'll talk about what it's going to be,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
So this was born out of the How I Would Hack You talk, which was totally an accidental thing that we got roped into.
Literally by Wayne Selk. I would
By
actually
Wayne
bring
Selk.
this back full circle.
This is Wayne Selk's fault.
It's your fault. You sent us down this path.
Back in 2022.
Yeah.
So we've been given this How I Would Hack You talk, and I probably bar late one night. We're like, what if we actually hacked MSPs, right? What if we actually did it? And we set out to do it earlier this year. We are making progress.
Yeah.
Not as much as we'd like, I think. And we'll
No,
talk about that.
which is good for the MSP community, I think.
But yeah, it's basically we have 47 MSPs that we sent legal agreements to. We have 27-ish have signed the legal agreements. There's interesting reasons that some of them didn't. Some good reasons, some silly reasons. And then, we probably won't try to swing at all 27. It's just too,
at least some amount. So let's talk about that. So first off, you have this self-selected, and what it really comes back to is we're going to do a talk, or a lot of talks actually out of this, as it turns out. But at least one talk is Wild West Hackin Fest, where Slagle and I are going to represent this group. Tom's going to be there for our moral support and loving for us, but where we're going to represent talking about the state of the MSP union and what we experienced going through this and what we learned going through this. So that's going to be the premise of the talk. So we started out by saying, okay, here's the 47 that said yes. Let's do passive things that we can do against them that aren't breaking the law, right? That without their legal agreement, we can do just like anybody else can do, which you're going to learn today. There's some new stuff. It's pretty neat. But then after that, we get down to the ones that signed. There was a good number of them, and I'm going to talk about this at Wild West Hackin Fest, that gave us reasons that they were not signing. And in some ways, we made the legal agreement so brutally one-sided. Like it was what? How much in liability?
$100.
$100. We limited ourselves to $100 in liability, right? And that's if we just destroyed anything with no guidance, no subnet. I would have said absolutely no to that agreement.
Yep.
And I'm not judging those that said yes. In fact, I think they are absolutely in the right vein of why they're doing it, and I love them with all my heart.
It's trust in us is why they said yes.
That's
not
it.
Because of the agreement. Not because of the agreement.
That's fair. Okay, Tom, one corked bat for having a little bit of fame in the internet space, but you're not wrong. But next, we get into what we started doing was spraying and looking at the infrastructure, looking for common threads and looking for things that kind of stood out. Anything that sticks out in your mind before we get going?
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it more, but there definitely seems to be a pattern of MSPs buying MSPs and not taking down any of the old MSPs infrastructure.
Yeah,
So.
that's They did. No one thinks and just kind of leave all that hanging there.
Yeah, and we did stay up too late. I don't think we've been to bed before 2 a.m. in the last 3 days working on this. So just so y'all know,
If
we're
you
probably
take the
running on a combined
cybersecurity,
20 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
but
What's
if you
that?
take the cybersecurity out of that statement, is that infrastructure not costing them any money?
There's that
Nobody is
too.
tracked. Just saying. Just saying.
Yeah. I mean, in leaving dev copies of sites up and running, there's a lot of really, really interesting findings. Nothing so far that we've overtly been able to pop. But I told you that.
Which, yes, go with it. Just say it.
Yeah. I mean, I told him Monday that, look, these probably are not going to be exploited this way. And the reason they're probably not going to be exploited this way is these are on the internet. And if they were poppable, they were already popped. Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I had low hope that we were just going to like come out.
Oh,
with an
found a
easy
10. Let's go
yeah,
use
yeah.
it. And I will say I spent 4 hours Monday.
Yep.
Don't laugh at me. That's not nice. I don't feel good in my heart when you do. But I spent 4 hours trying to knock over a Zyzel modem or a router that was on the front end, a gateway. And it just wasn't playing nice. It totally should have been susceptible to the attack. It absolutely should have. But it probably had something where I was missing something very critical in a very small, nuanced way.
Yeah, I think the memory layout's different on the device you were attacking versus what the exploit is written for.
Totally. And so you can go down rabbit holes, which is one of the things you wanted to cover today.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can go... there's every brand of rabbit hole, and as somebody with some ADHD, the rabbit holes are really hard. You get down a tool rabbit hole, right? So it's... You start doing this. We sat down on Monday morning. It started. We did a little bit Sunday evening after you got in, but we in earnest started Monday morning. And the first hour was just spent getting Cali's up to date.
Yep.
Because, I mean,
Cali's infrastructure build. Microsoft knocked over a domain. We had to deal with some of that stuff to get it back functional and get things up and running. And then, not to mention, we have put in about 200 hours probably combined of the infrastructure scanning, enumeration. And if you want to know more about that, Dom, we did a show on enumeration and some of that. What I do want to take a second and share my screen for here in a second is to share a technique that we found that kind of significantly changes that by companies and roll them up. And we'll talk about that real quick. So there's methodologies out there for y'all that are not familiar with kind of how penetration testing happens. It's normally a billed hourly rate for X number of hours for an engagement. It's not saying we're guaranteed to win. It's not saying it's that we'll put this many hours into looking at your stuff. And in order to do that, to be more effective with those hours, these penetration testers build tools and techniques that they own. And a lot of them tend to come from Black Hills Information Security, and specifically the ones I use around identity are coming from Daft Hack or Bo Bullock. If you've never had a chance to take his class, you absolutely should. This particular tool, though, is called Trevor Spray, and Trevor Spray is not by Black Hills Information Sec. It's actually by another Black Lantern Security, and they put together some pieces of stuff from MSOL Spray and some pieces of other things. But what does it mean? Well, let's just cut to it. What you do is you would run a command saying, "Hi, I need to Trevor Spray for enumeration." Oh, I'm sharing the wrong screen. Touche. Let me fix that, y'all. Sorry. Maybe. See if I can fix
Does
this.
that command actually start with hi though? Because that's how all code should be written.
It does. You have to put in high space. That's the only way for it to run.
Okay.
100%. Okay, maybe I'm lying. I'm maybe lying. All right, let's see if I can change to a different type of screen share. Okay, window. All right. So this is one of our infrastructures that's up. The good news is I didn't expose my IP. But you guys, Control Plus?
Control Plus that a couple times.
With Shift?
We should make the font size bigger.
That works. Yeah. Okay, so this tool you're going to run and say, okay, I want to enumerate a domain. So you just give it a domain and ask it to enumerate. There's no credentials involved in this. This is just a tool that I'm running. And I'm just --recon pax8.com. It's going to go dig into text records that they can look at and enumerate. It's going to give me a lot of information much faster out of that. Token endpoints, if I wanted to spray passwords against it for my OAuth token endpoints. Ask me how I know. It's going to get into a bunch of stuff. But what I really want to call out is this. This is probably the most valuable thing that we found in the last week, right? Yeah. Like it has found another 400 or so devices for us to scan, at least in the first 10 minutes of doing this. It's enumerating all the domains you've chosen to add into Office 365. So I can find your Bamboon Clouds and your pax8.coms and your .uk and your infrastructural domains. And I think this is going to be one of those takeaways that I'll talk about later of why. Yeah, go.
There's another side effect if you acquire a company and haven't announced it yet and tie it to your Microsoft 365 domain. We can see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we've taken these domains and now we're going into that same pattern, Dom, of enumerate, expand, scan,
Right.
understand, right? Like, what am I seeing? What's there? And
I
we've
mean,
got a
that's
couple
pretty
endpoints.
cool. Is that available in the OIDC configuration? Like, where does that sit?
It's not.
I haven't actually looked
Parts
at the
and
source.
pieces,
Yeah.
Dom. There's certain
Okay.
patternistic aspects that came from MSOL Spray's ability to find those endpoints,
Right.
but there's also other pieces that seem to be enumerative in other ways, actually. I'm not sure. I don't know.
They're undocumented
pretty
graph
cool.
APIs.
Yeah. Without
Okay.
authentication. Similar to the way you might validate a user by just checking. In fact, that's one of the
Sure.
other things it does really well. Trevor Spray also allows us to enumerate user existence with brute force methods. What we do, and I don't know if you want to speak towards the technique.
It actually looks for their OneDrive link, right? So like it knows the pattern of the username in a domain name for their OneDrive, their shared drive, and it just goes out and checks for all of them. And it does it without attempting to log in, right? It does it without it doesn't really leave any logs that you could find. It's basically if it gets a 302, 200, or anything else, it assumes the account exists. If it gets a 404, it doesn't. And that's a really interesting, quick way to enumerate accounts that exist at a domain. We have, I would say, based on what we know about some of the company sizes, we have good success enumerating
50-60%.
50-60% just by using common first name, last name lists and creating the permutations and just checking against that, right? Like we've got very good.
Yeah. And it's not findable because you're just seeing 404 if it doesn't exist. And if it exists, you're going to not authenticate and go down that path. You're just seeing if the site exists. And so there's not actually anything from a sign-in log perspective. It's really just enumeration. So what we've found is, I think overarchingly, MSPs actually seem to do a decent job of the infrastructure under their primary domains that they think about. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes,
that mostly patched, we found maybe 15 critical vulnerabilities across that core infrastructure?
Yeah, it's probably 25, but
something like that.
How many of them are using secondary domains that are not their primary for infrastructure?
Many of them.
Yeah, I wouldn't say 30%, maybe as a guide.
The bigger ones, almost all the bigger ones. And I have a feeling that has to do I think it's an accident.
We've only found one that uses a different UPN from their SMTP domain.
Yes.
Which is another piece, right? So we're doing a lot of these type of things, Dom. It's a great question. Like we're trying to get these stats of like how many are using Cloudflare tunnels, right? And how many would you say have been using either Cloudflare or Fastly?
A
or
small
something?
handful.
Yeah. 20, 10, something, low percentage. We'll know the real numbers when you come and see us at Wild West Hackin Fest and we actually do our presentation the day before. So we'll be good. But yeah, so those are the kind of thematic things. So go ahead, Dom.
No, I was just giggling.
Up front, I would say MSPs from an infrastructural perspective are doing a good job. I would also say the number of MSPs that are pure identity have literally surprised me, right? That are using mostly SaaS, that don't have a lot of infrastructure that they're running. They're using identity centric. It might still be AD, but they're extending into SaaS apps and hosted apps. They're not hosting as much, and then they're therefore not exposing as much in that right.
There's several of them that have no infrastructure that we were able, that they seem to own that we were able to identify.
Nessa scan equals blank.
It's like I'm not gonna scan your hosted Screen Connect instance, right?
Yeah,
like I don't want to make.
I might throw passwords at it, but
angry. So
exactly. And so what we had to do, in fact, that goes back to it in our infrastructure. We did a lot of work just determining if this was sprayable or not, if we could do any vuln scan against it. I would also say I want to give a shout out to a former guest of ours that was on last week. They are still the only MSP. And if you're in our program and I'm wrong, please let me out. Don't go back and check and then say I'm wrong. I mean, if you know, but they're the only MSP that has actually found our scanning and said, hey, y'all, would you quit it? This is ridiculous. And our vuln attempts and our poking at their infrastructure. Nobody else has reached out yet. So it would indicate to me that most MSPs, if there were a concerted actor, would probably be unaware of most of it.
I mean, some of this is running infrastructure on the internet, right? Like you always get password sprayed. I just assume all the time that somebody's spraying passwords.
But they didn't block us. They didn't stop the scanning. There's no auto block in that. And to give kudos, which you'll show, and maybe we're giving away before the talk, is they actually sent us back a RFC that was a joke RFC, Dom, for like an April Fool's. They sent us back 418. I'm a little teapots. 165,000 of them
from a hypertext coffee pot control protocol.
Yeah, the hypertext coffee pot control protocol was used as a methodology. So that was fun. So general state of the union infrastructure, I think MSPs are doing pretty well. Now, remember, This is the subset that said, I think I'm good. Right? Like this is the ones that signed up.
And they're not good. Like we just haven't had anything we've been able to action yet.
That's true.
There's a lot of 9s and 10s. There's not exploits available yet.
In all the MSP market, there's really just, when you think about it, not that many people going to the events and these talks. So you're already a leveled up MSP if you're willing to come and show up at the talk at all. Just going to an event, be getting out there. So many of the MSPs I know in the area I live here, they've never gone to any events.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And so we're at that top percentage of that top percentage. And even then, one of the things that I will say stood out infrastructurally is, holy God, and I might tackle this at the end of the show, but when you have infrastructure and you bought a company, like maybe you should get rid of some stuff. Like we found portals that go back to a broken database. They don't even work. They're just sitting there running. They're not a honeypot.
They're in debug mode. So when you error them out, which you inevitably do, they spit out source code.
All kinds of stack traces.
It's using a PHP framework on the back end, and the PHP framework's in debug mode. So it's not great.
But that's kind of common for the internet, I would say, not just MSPs. MSPs are just part of that culture of setting up 10 million dev things and leaving them open.
Yeah. But in this one specifically, the database isn't even functional. It would literally just take a smoke test to shut down some infrastructural attack surface. Like that's the point. This is the pets and cattle discussion. Like at some point you need to treat them like cattle and you need to get rid of them when they're not needed anymore.
Well, the production site is still on that host, right?
True story.
Like you just need to shut the other vhosts down. I can tell you what directory they're in.
If you want to know, we will show you what to do in our findings. Which actually we should give some shout outs, right? PlexTrack has been awesome to give us some assistance. They loaned us an instance, so I want to shout out to them. PlexTrack, thank you. I also would say that Huntress has been amazing in this in helping us out with some things that we won't talk about right now. Black Hills Information Sec has been awesome in trying to give us some help down this road. So Finn, oh man, but yes, we have some very interesting things coming to get more data and data set. Wes, we can't. No, it's too much. Not Wes Spencer, actually, is who we're talking about.
He's been giving us some moral support behind the scenes.
That's fair. And maybe you never know. But also, I want to say, since we're talking about T-shirts, I want to shout out to Tara right now. Tara's dealing with some bull crap, and I just want to just tell her we love her. And so I'm wearing my EmmyBot shirt in her honor. I had to move my beard for it, even. Just so you know.
People need to make beard-friendly shirts.
Yeah, like logos just 5 inches lower. That's it. Yeah, it'll look a little belly, but we'll get through it, right? No problem. Okay, so we think infrastructure is decent. Let's go on to identity, right? So we've already started touching on identity. What are we seeing universally? Like one of the things that I'm seeing, I'll say. Any thoughts come to mind around identity?
First initial, last name seems to be the most common account pattern.
And let's talk about the math of it, right? If I take 26 letters as the first letters and combine them with the top X names that are the last names, I have far less numbers of iterations than if I have all of the top X of first names and all of the top X of last names that can go way beyond 5,000, which means your iterations get from 130,000 iterations-ish to millions of iterations. And so now your scanning time takes forever. So what's the takeaway from that, Tom? What should MSPs do if they're thinking about that?
First name to last name.
Remove the number of make the variables larger for me to scan against.
First name at in most cases.
Yeah,
right? So we're
Matt.
I was trying to think about we're only first name.
You're like I don't want to call myself out right now.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, even worse. You can use my email address. Like that's what I'm just like. I know what we're
Tom
not
at.
Yeah.
I didn't expect this takeaway.
I didn't expect this takeaway either. I hadn't even considered that.
I didn't. I was Emily. Yeah. I mean, I was mad at one point, and I think the point is and this is my takeaway from this. And I've said this before, this is just further justification of it. I'm actually not a great hacker. I'm decent at best. But what I have learned through learning these techniques is what actually makes a difference. If I have to scan all of those passwords times all of those individual unique passwords I might be thinking about, I now got into the billions of attempts.
We ran a box out of memory trying.
Yeah, we did. We crushed an entire box. We had to up our subscription and whatever awesome Bastion hosting platform we were using. So I would say if you're listening, a good takeaway would be do add those longer names, but don't make it convenient that I can still sign in with my shorter name, right? Change the UPN and ensure that you can't sign in with those aliases, which is usually the case. But we have noticed that a lot of the places we were scanning, we found better success scanning some of the old names that weren't converted because of that shorter number of them to hit. So we had a higher chance of catching the bill that you left be Bill. And I am talking to the CEO usually when I'm saying that? I mean, just not you guys. That was just a weird head
Oh
turn.
no,
I just
you.
want-
Yeah.
What else did we learned too? Because one of the other things we talked about was token theft and false assumptions. There, anything you want to share on that?
Yeah, I had assumed our conditional access policy was set up in such a way that token theft wouldn't work on us, and we, in testing the phishing infrastructure, definitely proved that that wasn't the case.
Yeah,
We definitely I created a test account in our domain, and we fished it with EvilGenics, and we got the token and were able to use it.
And Matt sent an email.
Yeah, I did. I did send an email because that's what one does. So I think from an identity perspective, when you think about your SSO infrastructure, and if you're more technical watching this, you really want to make sure that you're really hammering down those conditional access policies. If you remember, Meister does a great job with this, right, Dom? We had Merrill Fernando on, and he has an entire framework for testing your CIP.
Yeah, I just saw today too. I think that's in CIPP now. I think they integrated Meister right into CIPP.
That's
epic. Yeah.
Oh, that's epic.
It also lets you apply templates across all your.
And now there's no code failure. And Kelvin's really deep with those humans, so that's actually an amazing announcement. If you're not aware of CIPP, great call out, Dom. You should be on CyberDrain Improved Partner Portal or CIPP if you're not. That's a Matt Lee approved statement. So we have identity and we have this false assumptions thing that I'm finding. And I do believe that some of the things we'll be doing in the near future around phishing and around some of those explorations that we're doing. Yes, if you're one of those signees, we might be doing some phishing soon. So giving you a fair warning to be ready for it. There's also some unique techniques that are out there that I don't want to share too much yet, but I will say there are ways that I could deliver phishing to you that you will never interact with my infrastructure, and I will have more power than I've ever had, courtesy of Daft Hack and GraphRunner. So if you want to get ahead of it, go look at GraphRunner and see what your defenses might be against what I'm doing. And I will share that real quick if you want to go back to my screen. We've been using a lot of tools, again, from Daft Hack, one of those being MSOL spray, right? MSOL spray is awesome because it allows us to take a credential and spray it against the Microsoft Online endpoint to check it. I want to make very, very, very clear note of this statement, Jason.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the more surprising. Like, I'm surprised people haven't reached out to us yet because we've locked out a non-zero number of accounts. I think we're up in the 40s.
It's in the high 40s. Yeah. Some smart lockouts, so obviously not affecting the user. And I would also say it tends to make me believe that those account lockouts have very long token lifetimes, and that a lot of the things they're seeing aren't being impacted potentially, depending on what they're doing, what system they're in.
I'll also note that IPv6, this is the best use case for it.
Let's talk about it. You brought this to help us.
Yeah.
What did you bring us?
Yeah, well, so, we set up the IPv6, you have that many more IP addresses to come from, and then the tools automatically will rotate them for you and come out of a different IP address each time. It's built into the tooling. And there's so many IPv6 addresses, so you can just rotate through them.
You can get a /64 assigned to your cloud instance.
A lot of addresses.
It's 15 quintillion addresses, so you will never make a single request.
What does that do? What does that help us with? Why are we doing that?
It defeats Smart Lockout because Smart Lockout considers the source IP, and every single request we make comes from a new source IP. So we never trigger Smart Lockout.
And Microsoft is so kind as to let us use their IPv6 endpoint for authentication. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Another reason to turn off IPv6.
It is maybe a reason for that. I don't know that's in our control there, but for sure.
Security help.
Maybe we should just kill IPv6, Tom. That's all it is. We can just carrier grade NAT this thing. It's working.
I'm leading the charge on that. I've got a lot of angry people on Twitter.
Yeah.
So I bring it up a lot. Every time I tweet about it, there's always angry people on Twitter, but they're angry at me for that time.
Yeah. Specifically in this case.
On that.
Yeah. So MSOL spray has been effective, but really what's magical about Trevor proxy and just into that IPv6 is you can put Trevor proxy and Trevor spray, specifically Trevor spray in this case, on a host with all the addresses, and just say randomly use any of these addresses between this space and IPv6 as our routing. And they're all routable back to host. That's kind of the beautiful part about this IPv6 aspect. So that lets us get us through that with Trevor Spray. And Trevor Spray is really looking at me trying to find accounts, me trying to find email addresses, not so much trying to password get in at this point, right? It could, but today it's not what we're using for. Instead, what we're using a combination of MSOL Spray and Fireprox, which is another amazing tool. If we'll bring that up real quick, I'll share it. Fireprox is another one of those by Black Hills Information Sec. I believe it's also Bo Bullock. It's under Daft Hack. No, USTA ready. I'm sorry if I stole that attribution, but it is another Black Hills information tool. And what it does is it takes advantage of the fact that you can, in AWS, make an API endpoint gateway that I can call that will simply just from itself reach out to an address you ask it to go to. If that address happened to be login.microsoft.com, let's say, I could just call that API with parameters to pass to that variable field, and it will come from a new address every single time on the outside of AWS's infrastructure. In fact, they actually have a legal agreement that you must have with AWS in order to use that infrastructure that way for penetration testing that basically says you own the infrastructure you're testing, or that you are testing infrastructure with legal agreements and rights.
It is also has a side benefit of some key places whitelist the AWS IP space. Same thing. If we could do a similar thing with Azure, I wonder. Actually,
we can.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. We can. Yeah. In fact, there's a neat mail delivery trick I'll show you that I learned from Bo. So absolutely, we're going to get some mail in people's boxes without hitting their spam gateway at all, in a way that Microsoft knows about and hadn't fixed yet. So, I guess what I'm getting at is there's a lot of modern tools. That one of the things that I didn't expect was how much of a learning curve I actually was going to have on both the Linux aspect, because I'm not great at it. Jason's already laughing because how terrible I am. And actually the using these tools in ways that are actual production. And you talk about this a lot, the difference between being a theorist and academic and being a tactician and a practitioner. Talk about that a bit.
Yeah, a lot of these, we talk a lot, and a lot of the things we bring up are theory, right? It's like we know of these tools, but we've never actually used them. I hadn't used my hacking specialty is more binary analysis, exploitation, reverse engineering, that kind of stuff, right? Like I'm not deep in the identity stuff.
I love identities.
The learning curve around these tools has been giant, but it gives me so much more appreciation for the work that the red team in community is doing and does, and two, about the inner workings of some of these things. Right? Like
Trevor Spray and the Microsoft thing was
it was very eye-opening.
Yeah, and I'll say why. I use an auth domain that is separate from my mail domain, and I don't use mail on it. I had to bring it into Microsoft to make it function, but I don't use mail on it. I use it for the OAuth side of it, and guess what? Shows up. You can go find it and attack me. Yeah, and that's unfortunate, right? And that's but
it's not right. So I think that you bring us to a very good point, though, which is unless you're super targeted, no one's doing that.
Yeah.
Right. Like
common tools will find the super targeted. I would expect to see a Huntress or a Blackpoint or Microsoft 365 team have already probably seen and alerted to some of our stuff. In fact, if you're out there watching and you're using one of those services and you're part of our hackening, let us know if you've seen some of this Microsoft spraying. We've been not hiding it. It's been coming from horrible domains that should not do that. Yeah. So like
not even all of it is rotating IPs. We've definitely
boom, 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 boom. Hi, it's me. Oh man, what else? Obviously, there's the old go-to, and I'll bring this up because I'm familiar-ish with Metasploit. I've used it a lot in a lab environment, and this is another one of those things where it comes back to understanding how to use something in a lab environment is not the same as me finding a USG 1100 that has some slightly different mapped memory space than the USG 400 that this was tested on. Right. And that impact.
And that's been a lot of the things is that it's like, oh, wow, we got a
10
and it's like, or a 10. Right. And it's like, but there's no exploit available.
Yep.
Like this is a theoretical attack, right? Like neither of us have the time to sit down and actually try to write a proof of concept and exploit against this, documented vulnerability. Or a lot of them require specific configurations that they're not running. Like we were talking about AJP, right? Like I'm like, oh no, they're not running AJP. It turns out they were.
We just haven't found an insertion point. We're not done.
Yeah, we're not.
If they let me upload a file, it's over.
There's a thing.
It's over.
We have we likely will have a win.
We will get a win on that.
But it's not. It's harder than it seems, right? It's not just press button get root.
Yeah, it's a lot harder than it seems. And I think to your original point, if it was just press button get root, then the opportunistic scanners would have already done it. Right, and that's what we're dealing with here. It doesn't mean we can't do it, and it doesn't mean that if I didn't get some people like our former web app pen tester, that's what they do all day, to spend time on it, we wouldn't actually win. Which goes back to if you're not using the infrastructure, shut it down. If you're not using the systems, shut them down. Don't leave those vhosts up. Don't leave those things up unedited.
And I am doing some exploratory web app testing.
We found some things.
We've got some things. We are Burp Suite. I've swung at a bunch of these sites with Burp Suite. So another thing somebody should have detected that no one is, to my knowledge, detected yet.
Nope.
We are, and I will likely get a win in one of those portals.
For sure.
We have a few friends that are in this space. What we should do is we know the IPs we're using. We should give them to them and say, let me know when someone reports us, when one of the tooling.
That's a great call out.
When do we end up in like the big ones like Census? When do we end up on Gray Noise or anything like that?
Yeah, and you brought up a great conversation. Like, it's a constant fight. In fact, the reason Black Hills hasn't done more with us is they're afraid to burn their TTPs.
Right.
They already have things that are working that wouldn't work after they show them off. And so a lot of the work that I've done has actually been things like this. If you'll share my screen again. This is an article by Jack Button, January this year, and it's been updated in some of the chat groups that I'm in. But basically trying to hide my Cloudflare, try to hide my Evilginix attack. If you've heard about Evilginx or Evilginix, it is a man-in-the-middle proxy or an AITM proxy that Microsoft can't stop with the traditional stuff until you're using FIDO tokens or other things that are passwordless that are in that FIDO resistant or phishing resistant methodologies. And we covered that a little bit before and several times with Merrill. But Evilginix is now found so quickly by Microsoft, and it's because of their DFB presence and Defender for Endpoint presence that they now go, asset went to AITM, AITM went to Microsoft. We don't know AITM, problem. They're looking at headers. They're looking at the way it behaves. And so what this has been, we've been doing this. We've burned 3 sets of infrastructure now of Microsoft hours of it. And so it's a constant race to keep good infrastructure up. And maybe it's just me not being good enough yet, but it's obviously a problem that people are writing about it constantly. Now it goes through a Cloudflare front end. In fact, I don't even mind. I do mind showing it to you.
Don't do that.
That one's not getting shown.
Yeah,
you can see it next update.
Yeah.
After we've run this. But so far, we've done infrastructure and we've done enumeration of identity extensibility. We also found tons and tons of old infrastructure that are still tied back to legacy creds that we're going to start spraying. And we're going to start using a lot more of our dark web dumps from good friends that can help us get there. Things like what Britton White does, where he's digging in those databases and finding creds. We may employ some of those things to find recent creds to test against those ancient systems. So if you are part of this group and you're being tested today, I don't mind losing. Go fix the stuff we've talked about. Like, go deal with the things we're already kind of seeing and make it on your POAM of list of things to do.
In one debate some people may have is saying, hey, those creds that are there are old.
Yeah.
Back to old infrastructure still up from the, the pre-acquisition mergers and things like that. Like, oh yeah, we left all that up, but we rolled them on the new side, but we happen to use these creds still on the old infrastructure, and some of these dev things, it might be still in use there.
Yeah.
We have come across treasure troves of new infrastructure to start scanning.
Like I thought the first 3 weeks of work I've put in were good. We now are starting again, which again leads credence to why are pen tests so expensive versus an automated pen test? Pen tests are expensive because it takes human ingenuity, time, new tooling, constant updates against infrastructural challenges, all of those things. They're expensive for that reason, if that makes sense. And I have a newfound appreciation for that. There was a comment from Lanyap IT that said, the hackening, I'm so bummed I couldn't participate, but excited to see some results. They might have an opportunity to participate if we could scale this, wouldn't they?
Yes.
Let's talk about our meeting with a certain head of a professor.
I have adjunct faculty at UT, University of Toledo, from time to time, and we got to talking again, the same way this was born, having beer at dinner.
Yeah, pretty much.
And we met with the head of cybersecurity at the University of Toledo about letting their students do this. Right, so we've got the legal agreements in place. The students could use it as a capstone class where they actually do the work and they write the report at the end of it, and we protect them. No university is going to sign that agreement or give
directly.
that agreement. There's too much liability, right? And the university won't accept it. But we can hold that liability and hold it away and let some cybersecurity students.
And by we mean Cyberrise Inc. that Robert Chiaffi and Jason Slagle and I at least got off the ground. But we're looking for a lot more people. We'd love to have others involved, and we're going to be more to talk about that as time comes.
Speaking of which, on the drive down, we should brand the presentation Cyberrise.
Oh, yeah, 100%. That's it, Cyberrise. But Cyberrise is going to do a lot more good in this community. We're going to use that as some legal protection and ensure a lot of that to allow some universities to say, hey, maybe we can use universities and students to go through and learn some of these techniques in a more tactical, practical manner, right, where they're actually getting to test it on real things. Give them some good guidelines of things they can't do so they don't break operations and take down, an MSP's capabilities. But what if we could use the academic growth that we're trying to drive in this world to additionally drive their capabilities and also secure us at the same time and reduce some of that overhead without having a $30,000 pen test cost as an MSP? And what if you eventually got enough density of those colleges doing it that you could even have comparisons of students' capstone projects of Dom was better than Matt at this. Here's my report. Have a nice day, right?
Get a CTF out of it almost.
Yeah, almost in that way. So I don't know. We're getting close to it. Topic wise, we've pretty well covered at least what we're up to and have done at this point. We're getting to the identity stage. We're having to go back and double our work because we found so much infrastructure. We hadn't scanned it in the first enumerations. And that Microsoft connectivity, if you've missed it, was such a big part of that. Because even if you had bought a domain that you stood up as an infrastructure and put email on it once, I couldn't find that in other ways as easily unless you link it from your website. Another one, actually. Why don't you talk about this? What did we do first?
We went to every website. So a couple things I learned. All MSP websites look the same.
Yep.
Including ours.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
I'm like, wait, that messaging is exactly the same as ours. And a lot of people link. We're able to tell what tool stack you run. Like, are you in the Kaseya ecosystem or the ConnectWise ecosystem or Ninja or Halo? Like, we're able to usually find all that off of your website. And if you use an infrastructure domain, you may link to it, right? And so we were able to discover several infrastructure domains just by following links off of the marketing website.
Yep. And that's going to be part of the talk is what data do you choose to expose? And it really is a attack surface versus protect surface conversation. Like, you have to protect everything. You don't have to show everything to everybody. And that is something where one could reduce that attack surface by not necessarily doing it. And the reason we do it is to make it convenient, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, how do you get to my help button?
As the guy who talks about all his tools on YouTube.
There is a certain irony in that.
There might be an entire list in my forums of our software. We made it really easy.
That's fair. The point is, I think, when you do that, it just makes it easier, at least, to start figuring out what I might do to attack, what things we're going to be doing. And that'll be in later iterations of this. We have this agreement till the end of the year with these current MSPs. So we're going to try to be very thorough and give a lot of that to most of these MSPs to at least have some findings and things we found that they might want to improve as a way to improve. So
I mean, the talk's in 2 weeks, but we will continue once it's done.
That's right. Yeah, this is a mission for us at this point, and actually
And it's
quite fun. I was going to say we came to it at the same point. Like, I didn't get much work done because I stared at a screen for about a bunch of hours. So
and it makes the days go really quick. It reminds me of doing a CTF.
It does.
It's very much in the same vein.
I was kind of thinking too, because we're doing a talk on the merger that we did, and we should probably add some of that in there. We wound down infrastructure, and we killed off things that we didn't need. We killed off the email addresses, forwarded the ones that were relevant to where they needed to go, so there was continuity for customers. But there's not. I was going in my head like, there's not any hanging infrastructure.
I don't think any of your infrastructure is running anymore.
No, I turned it all off. Even invoicing, everything I had attached. We shut down ticketing, all that stuff. We just forwarded what we needed.
What drove that?
We both think about these things.
Yeah.
Not just money, security, all of it, just the
decision.
things. It was an active decision.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I mean, in my mind, it really is. If you're going to buy companies, I've always been an integration guy, right? I've always believed integrate, destroy, reduce attack surface. But it's really plain. We'll probably get our biggest wins out of a lot of those acquisitions.
I think so.
Yeah, is what it feels like. And the other thing is you can just search. We showed you in the show with Dom and I during our enumeration that you can just search. Such and such MSP acquires MSP.
Yeah, that's what I was searching for to get a list before we.
Now we found this.
Now we have a great way to do it. But before it was take an MSP name and then just do acquisition or acquires, right? And then you do you search PR sites.
Yep, just Google dorking.
Google dorking. You find a ton of them.
So, all right. Any closing thoughts, Dom? Anything that this sparks for you? Is it surprising for you, Dom, as to what we're finding with the MSPs? What are your thoughts?
I'm impressed that you guys are impressed with what you're finding, right? In terms of some of the basic hygienes. I'm also not at all surprised that we are finding 9s and 10s and some challenges of patching, and it's in the realm of what I expected. I'm super excited to try out Trevor Spray because that's a cool tool. So that's a fun one. I'm glad I was introduced to that. But yeah, I think all in all, I was totally expecting you guys to show off a train wreck, and it doesn't seem like it's as much of a train wreck in terms of what
knew
y'all
that.
find.
You broke this on me Monday, and you waited a long time to break this on me. So I don't know if that was intentional, but what did you say to me on Monday about this?
I'm pretty sure I said on Monday we're unlikely to get a win this week. Because if like we will make progress, but there is no low hanging fruit because it's already picked.
Yeah. And that's true. I did find a Unify controller that I think I can pop that was old enough. Not that 7, but an earlier one.
Crashed.
But it's an old cloud controller.
Crashed.
It's one of the old dongled cloud controllers, so it's half crashed. Can I call them and ask them to
Oh,
reboot it for me? Maybe do some pretensing.
Well, it's probably someone's already. There's those automated bots. If it was vulnerable to
knocked
something like
over.
it's already
Yeah.
knocked over.
Yeah, in which we might, and maybe that's the worst thing we
Well,
could find.
We literally, I have a consulting thing. If you were looking at my emails, going back and forth, someone, that's what happened.
Oh, that's funny.
Maybe we find some sort of like denial of service that crashes it and forces it to reboot, right? Like that. So this is the case where you might be able to chain a couple things together. There might be a denial of service that causes the device to reboot that we can act on it, and so we might be able to just force it to reboot.
And it's old enough based on the versions of OS and Apache or Tomcat
It's running a
that are
very old
running
version of
that
Tomcat.
triggered us to this. So we'll probably find that, and if we can get it to boot and knock over, we'll get back. I'll get initial. I'll actually, Dom, get to bring out an oldie but a goodie you and I've done together. You remember the Log4j Pwn kit chained together for access and escalation?
A couple other vulnerabilities too, depending on
some
how
cross-site
old it is.
scripting, some things.
There's some actual. I think there's an actual RCE. We don't even have to use Log4j, depending on how old it is.
Nice. Well, we're gonna find out. This has been pretty much our update. I guess What's that? I've already set up my Jindy infrastructure.
Good old Bobby Jindy.
Bobby Jindy. That's awesome. Any closing thoughts, Tom? Anything you have on your mind about the project? Anything that surprised you?
Yeah, I thought a little bit like you that they might find some, but I think we're going to find more wins in the phishing.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of people that just can't resist. I almost clicked one the other day that was actually part of our training.
Yeah.
It was like, why is Jason sending me this? And they're like, because it was something it was almost like they read our mind to the conversation we were having about analytics on the website. It was the invite for the Google Analytics, which I actually don't have access to for CNWR. So I got an invite for him. I'm like, oh, cool.
I've been wanting to.
Wait. I didn't click it, but it was like, okay, that's a good one.
It's how they got me finally. So Finn got me. We use Finn, and they got me because I had ordered something and was expecting it to ship, and I got a shop tracking link, and figured it was my tracking link. I was expecting it. Yeah, it came within an hour or two of me actually legitimately ordering something, and I have no doubt we'll get somebody to click something. We've got a couple of good templates we're trying to massage that I think are
delivery methods.
Yeah, they're going to be good.
Of that nature. Maybe some really interesting attack surface we haven't talked about. So we'll see. And I think that's the fun part for me is I thought I was good at this before I started playing this game. I'm learning a lot of new things that I'm not good at least on a daily basis. So
his Linux skills are coming along quite handily.
I've learned Screen. I don't have to make 2 terminal windows now.
I want to get them on Tmux.
We're not there yet. We're not there yet. So if you're in the comments and you hate Tmux or Screen, start a fight. That's the best. That's my jam.
And Vim.
I'm never. No,
I'm not Vim. Yeah, no, thank you.
I'm not exclamation point queuing ever again. I hope. I digress.
I couldn't help you with Nano, though. You're asking Nano questions.
I got Nano, bro. I got Nano.
You're like, I don't know, it's Nano.
It's not very powerful, though.
Control J has helped.
Yes.
I would say what I'd love to as a call to action, maybe we'll go, Dom, do you have any final thoughts of anything? I'm pretty good on at least what I'm thinking from this so far. If not, I'll ask us to close it out.
Oh, yeah, I think it's great. But I think you owe us a play of the day.
I think I do. Let's cut over to play of the day, and we'll cut back to Dom. I'm cutting cameras, so I'm going to look over here. All right. You'll minus that. I'm probably wasting my time. Hold on 8 seconds. Okay, I got it. All right, so play of the day. If you are not thinking about your own infrastructure like a threat actor, you are probably going to get in trouble for that. I think it is one of those things where the nuance of how we use cloud infrastructure, the nuance of how we expose things, the amount of threat activity, the amount of vulnerabilities that are happening, all of those things coming together at once. And if you're not thinking about it like a threat actor, you're probably not aware of your gap. When I watched Matt's looking at me and seeing that his token was stolen, and I was able to replay it, and I was able to join a device with that token and have full access as a machine in your environment, and oftentimes we live on these false beliefs of what we have because we actually don't know what's possible. And I think that's the biggest part for me, is be aware of.
Game over.
All right, that's the play of the day. I think he barely squeezed it in. I'm going to give it to him, though. Just barely, though. Thanks so much for watching the show. We will see you next week, same time, same place. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And I should probably start promoting our security boot camp happening in November in Phoenix, because that's going to be a really cool show. So it's on pax8.com/events. Go check it out. If you can come to Phoenix, join us, and we'll see you next week.